What is going on, everybody? So, if I'm taking a look at this, again, as I always state, it says going live when really I'm already live. So, that is the lie. Hope everybody's going well. Hope everybody's doing well today. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and hit it out if you're watching this in review. If the live stream is already over, check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. You can also see me at twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded, where I will start doing some relaxed behind the scenes, just playing games, trying to entertain you to the degree that you don't mind hanging out with a guy playing games. We got Dev Gorman up in the house. So we got Alan Jolly. Always a pleasure to see both of you guys. Hope you're doing well. So today we're going to be talking about Star Trek, specifically with Starfleet and Earth, if it's considered more a paradise, if it is perhaps a hive of quote unquote right think and the impacts on that. Of course, we got Timmy the Squirrel. Hope you're doing well. Commander Shepard. Josef Petrik, a Slavic name if ever there was one. Don't forget to hit the like button. That is a good point out. Today and today only, you can in fact hit the like button for absolutely free. No charge. Special YouTube thing going on. Black Adam up in the house. Just got a haircut. Looking into dyeing my beard. Well, you should definitely tweet me what it looks like after that, sir. Definitely. Hey, Lore Reloaded, if you're president of the Federation, should you bring back the capitalist of American style? Absolutely not, because the utopia of the Federation apparently works. Whether it should or is supposed to in real life is irrelevant. It does work in that universe, so why would I go to something that is inherently flawed? Inherently flawed compared to what the universe says work, by the way. I am not necessarily saying that capitalism is flawed. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, just in comparison to the universe itself. So, this is going to be a analysis, or really a discussion, because I'd be curious on your guys' opinion on how Starfleet and Earth actually operate. And this is going to be based off of two series mainly, with a few interactions. Of course, we can talk about other series and their impacts on it as well. But for the most part, we're going to be looking at TNG, and we're going to be looking at Deep Space Nine. Specifically, the character interactions I want to focus on are that of Jellicoe versus Picard and the crew, Eddington versus Sisko, also the way Sisko's opinion when it comes to Starfleet, when it comes to Earth, it being a paradise, as well as the interactions of Sisko's father and the way he thinks things should be done, and the way just overall everyone reacts to what occurs. Now, there is an inherent problem, I think, that people will bring up, which is plainly you have people who have no idea how a utopia really is trying to write one, which can be somewhat fair, right? They have absolutely jack all to do of how humans really should react in a paradise. And so when they write it, it's obviously flawed to a degree. My opinion, based on everything that I've seen, is that ultimately, when it comes to ideas and thoughts and things that go against what the beliefs of the society are, it's looked down upon and even confusing. And I don't think that there is a large diversity of opinion on Earth. At a minimum, I would even argue that it's possible that there is it's prevalent through most of the core worlds of the Federation, if not a large majority of the Federation overall. And by the way, I'm going to be reading your comments very shortly. I'm just trying to get my thoughts out so you guys can comment on them and tell me what you think. But the reason I come to this discussion is because, or this reasoning is because when you look at the way Starfleet interacts with non Federation entities and their either disgust or confusion at how things occur. So when you look at how Starfleet reacts to the Ferengi, or when Jake Sisko is trying to discuss capitalism with Nog and points out he's a Terran and in the Federation and they don't deal with money. Or really anything. When you see how Picard interacts with Romulans, or when the interactions between LaForge and the Romulan soldier, it's all pretty consistent when it comes to the humans. And when you look at Sisko's father and how he talks about just how everybody feels generally the same, and he comes off to a degree as the odd man out. Remember, in Paradise Lost and in Homefront, he was resistant to having his blood being given, whereas other civilians, such as Jake and others, were happily giving their blood just to be tested. He was looked at differently because of that. You also can see just in the different actions that occur that when 27 people died on Earth, that was a big deal. 27 people died in a day. Even if we were to be if we were to give as much as we could based on that, if we were to be as charitable to them as we could argue that maybe when it was 27 people, it was 27 people died. That people dying on a daily basis may happen due to accident or the low amount of crime. Well, I can't even say crime, because you had Picard who said crime was just wiped away. It's no longer in the human ethos, which is ironic because you see humans committing crime. But if we're to be as charitable as we can and say that that just didn't happen, or it didn't happen to that degree, I think it's still telling how they can't even fathom such things a part of human nature. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Let's walk through it. I wonder where you guys are. Captain Jesse says, Lore Reloaded, I'm happy to see you live streaming again and happy to be live streaming. Well, I'm happy for you to be here, Captain Jesse. So in some ways, Eddington was quite accurate in reference to, I'm assuming, his speech on the board. Utopia is a relevant term, says Rouge. Midtown US or Europe are utopias compared to San Juan de Miraflores. Sisko is comparing Earth to Bajor and Cardassia. Yeah, you see, but here's the thing with that, Rouge. When he says utopia, I think he literally means it. Everything that's portrays it as a utopia, as a place of paradise, as a place where it is what everyone wants their world to be. It's not a paradise. It's not utopia compared to something else. It's literally a utopia. I don't know. I'd rather join the Klingons rather than Starfleet. Earth and the Federation is like San Francisco from South Park. Okay. Babylon 5 had more strong, open-minded people in Earth Alliance than Star Trek Starfleet's. Babylon 5 actually had a full-on civil war for Earth Alliance forces, which Star Trek had marquee crime. Yeah, I would agree with it. A lot of people say that DS9 was so comparable to Babylon 5, and I don't think the storylines... I think maybe the basis of the two happened, but the storylines just go in completely opposite directions. I do think that... Babylon 5 was more realistic because you had people on both sides that were sympathetic to the other, and you had people with opinions that were nuanced. Now, that being said, the last season captain or commander of Babylon 5, I forget her name, can go to hell. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She's a traitor through and through and shouldn't be part of Babylon 5, in my opinion. Lore Reloaded, do you think they should have warships to scope out unknown space when sending in explorer ships for science and other stuff, or combining them like they do is a good idea? When you're exploring new space, I think a combination of warship meets science is not a bad idea, though generally it would be. I think the Galaxy class, if they could, not make it a glass cannon and make it be able to take a few hits, isn't necessarily a bad idea. By the way, guys, where people are watching this, we have 43 concurrent viewers and only 18 likes. If you want these things to continue, we got to get it out there. Get it out to the new people. So hit that like button. We got to at least have parity. 43 likes or 43 dislikes. I don't even care. It's free today. Free. Yeah, Alan M. Jolly, her name was Lockley. Yeah, she's a horrific character in my opinion. The Immortal Super Being. Could Janeway be charged as a war criminal in the universe. Absolutely, she is a war criminal in multiple instances. The fact that I know people say that Janeway was kicked upstairs, it was totally political. There is no reason she shouldn't be serving the rest of her life in a Federation prison, but you can't. This was after the Dominion War. They were rebuilding, and Voyager had become somewhat of like a hero story. They were pushed out there, but they're coming back. The little engine who could, and all of that hippie hugging garbage. So you can't exactly throw her in jail without a huge outcry. She's basically a hero. So that's exactly why they kicked her up, though it makes no literal sense when you look at her crimes against humanity or, the universe. I think if Babylon 5 had some good sets and cosmetics, I would have watched it. Dave, I would suggest watching it past that. Just even if you don't like it, just watch it. If you don't like the cosmetics or whatever, watch it. The story may be able to pull you in without being concerned about the aesthetics of it. Hybrid Jack says the Federation works through indoctrination and enforce culture and political uniformity. Political uniformity? Not my idea of paradise. Plus, can you imagine how bland Earth would be without such differences? I do think there is cultural indoctrination, and I do think there is actual evidence of that. So, what was the name of it? Let me take a look. I think the episode is Hard Time. Yeah. So in the DS9 episode Hard Time, season 4, episode 19, apparently, O'Brien attempts to commit suicide. And when he's talking about why he commits suicide, it's because he can't he in his mind killed a person for food. And he can't come to bear with that because he states that in school, they're told that they are evolved humans, that they've come past they've moved past the wants of the 21st century. And so he can't deal with the fact that what he was told as a child, who he was told he was as a child, he wasn't able to do that as an adult, and he was willing to kill himself for that. And that thinking of that and going through that ideology really is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this. And of course, just looking at how Sisko and Eddington reacted, looking at Picard and Jellicoe. I really think DS9, whether they meant to or not, showed a dystopian place where ideology, and TNG really did this too, where ideology isn't necessarily accepted at the cost of a utopia. Or they showed a utopia at the cost of a free thought dystopia. So, I think it's intriguing. The Federation created a caste system and ignored that they did because it's inconvenient for them to admit it. Okay. It might be that in a post-scarcity society would be something of a homogenization of society. And I think that goes back to talk of, and maybe Nathan's about to talk to it, a utopia weakens resolve, and it's not that perfect if they ignore the problems and focus on only the good things. I think that really is human, that if things are going well, you're not exactly going to toe that line, right? You're not really going to rock the boat. And that's a common theme and cliche that we see in writing, but it's true. If you have a utopia where everything is given to you and you can be anything you want in the world, anything, then why on God's green earth would you question the authority that's granting it to you? Carlos Maza is a changeling. Carlos Maza isn't a changeling. You have to actually be brilliant. Changelings are pretty subtle, and they're able to interact with things. So no. The Federation is a bit scary if they have no crime with the way humans are. What did they do to stop it? What's your idea on what they did, says the immortal super being. The idea is the indoctrination. The fact that when you're told as a child you're evolved in things. I would say that it is human nature that if all your needs are met, that you wouldn't necessarily be as apt to commit crime. But the thing is crime doesn't necessarily go away because you're given everything. people will commit a crime just to commit it. And even if you're giving perfection, there are people who, either due to genetics or just due to being human, will do it. The idea is that ultimately those genes or that cultural belief was bred out of them in some way. But I don't know how true that could be. You know, I don't know. The character of the Federation may have changed had the capital been on a different world. Would the character of the Federation be changed? Um, it seems like Earth wields an unreasonable amount of power due to it being the capital. I wouldn't say that you don't have core worlds that aren't sophisticated or don't have political might. But I would say that it is possible, based on it being on Earth, that could. Also, when you look at the history of Earth, Earth is really what brought everyone together. Basically, all of the races had hats. Vulcans were logical. Klingons are militaristic. Andorians are militaristic. Tellarites like to debate and yell at each other and can be pretty angry. And humans have all of these things and can relate to all of the species, so they bring all of them together. And in fact, the Coalition of Planets was brought together by Earth, and that was basically the precursor to the Federation. And so I would say, because humans were vital, basically the reason the United Federation of Planets was brought together, they still have an unreasonable amount of political might. It's kind of like the Germans in the EU, except not as malevolent. Shots fired right there, folks. The Federation isn't post-scarcity. The outer colonies have to trade and use money in order to survive. The industrial replicators are only for disaster relief, so there is some scarcity. I disagree. See, Nathan, and I know that this is a common concept, and that we see this with... and I know Lore Runner and a few others have stated this. That doesn't seem consistent with what we see. In TNG early seasons, we see a little bit of that, but even in Deep Space Nine, Bajor, like as far out as you can get, the wild, wild west, Bajor, they have replicators, and they can get whatever they want. The only people who use money on DS9 are non-Starfleet and non-Federation. The only reason Starfleet or Federation use it is because they're required to so far out. While I think that trade still does occur, I don't necessarily think it's scarcity in the way that we look at it, because I think all the basic needs are met. I see why people have that opinion. I still disagree. I'm open to being wrong on that, but I still disagree. And, however, that said, I think that it's not necessarily the scarcity of like the basic needs or things like that. I think that it is the fact that the further you get away from the core, the more dangerous life is. Even though the Earth has been attacked several times, I think it's still somewhat dangerous, and that can change Federation. That can change, not Federation, that can change opinion. By the way, guys, if you're watching this, 60 people watching, 33 likes, come on. Come on, you want it to go up? Hit that like button. It seems that humans are the majority of population on colonies, and in the Federation generally, they would place Earth as being a metropolis, both politically and culturally. Interestingly, in the original series, when they talked about Starfleet and Federation bases and such, they were called Earth colonies. They were called Earth installations. I think there's something to that humans spread out kind of like a virus and may have a higher than normal percentage. I do think, and this is one of the rare times that I do this, I do think that we have to consider technology to a degree, and if technology in the real world and how it's costly to show anything other than humans. I don't like doing that, and I very, very rarely, I can count on one hand the amount of times I generally do that. It's one of the times that I'm willing to say, okay, they, maybe we can give a little slack on that. And if people who don't want to give slack, I completely understand. I really do. Quark has a replicator on an airport bar. Sure, he does. I agree. Who's the best captain to you? Archer, Picard, Benjamin, or Kirk? Out of the four presented, I'd say Cisco. Uh, and then probably Picard or Kirk would be a tie or very close, and Archer would be in the last because he's an idiot. Greets from Belarus. Well, greetings to you, Mistilav Portnov. The Vulcan colonies would be older. I agree, Vulcan colonies would be older. They were out there. LOL, one of the few times Lore Reloaded thanks, says Gigas0101. Yeah, it's alright. You don't have to watch. Be gone. Be gone, Gigas. Be gone, thought. Outlying colonies with advanced replicator technology with low population density would be very tempting targets for pretty much anyone else. I would agree. That's what I'm saying. The issues on Federation colonies, in my opinion, isn't necessarily the need for food or basics. It's more the exotic things that you want that maybe a replicator can't replicate. And it's the fact that you have entities and aliens that are willing to come and kill you and take what you want. You know? By the way, I find it funny no one disliked my swipe at the EU. By the end of DS9 First Contact time, the Federation is over 150 planets. Is it me, or do you think the Federation is underpowered than it should be? I think that it shows... I thought it was more than that, but I'm not necessarily... I'm not necessarily surprised by that. I would say that becoming a part of the Federation can be difficult as hell, in my opinion. It can be something that isn't exactly the easiest thing to do. So I'm not necessarily, what's the word I'm looking? I'm not necessarily surprised. How many disgruntled Starfleet officers and enlisted crew and Federation citizens defected to the Typhon Pact, especially after the Dominion War and the Borg War and Starfleet corruption? I don't know, since I haven't, read all of that series. I could imagine quite a few, though. Gigas, I'd figured humans have more colonies because it's a mix of humans being faster breeders, able to adapt more environments, and being cheaper on the makeup budget. Yeah, it's the cheaper on the makeup budget that shows a lot of it. Demos doesn't know what the S is right think. You don't know what the S is right think? It's the opposite of wrong think. You know what scares me? We know the Federation and Starfleet has successfully suppressed all thought, discussion, and education about the Omega molecule. That says a lot about the Federation, in my opinion. That's I think that that's a fair point. And it's something I didn't think about, but I did bring it up when I discussed the Omega molecule. The ability to suppress it is... can be pretty scary. It does tell you a lot, doesn't it? Especially from a cultural standpoint. I mean, if NASA or someone tried to suppress information, there would be hell to pay. And there is hell to pay when it's found out, but again, most seem just happy with it. I brought it up. I remember talking about it in my video, but I didn't think about it till just then. That's a good point. Well done. Well done. I think that Vulcans and the Andorians have limited populations. The Vulcans because of Ponfar, and the Andorians because of culture, and humans breed like rabbits. Andorians, I think, would be a tough sell. I could see why the Vulcans maybe wouldn't expand as much. But they seem to have a healthy population. Again, maybe not to the extent. You mean the... Phobo Skitty says, you mean the molecule that wipes out star systems when you try to F with it? Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by F up systems. It stops the ability to create warp, which is devastating. The Starfleet also surpassed knowledge of the Borg for 200 years. The Starfleet also surpassed. Okay. Al Weifu has appeared. A wild Al Weifu has appeared. in the pacifistic era, in the pacifistic TNG era, I was surprised the Federation was as attacked as shown. How unprepared they were. In the pacifistic TNG era, let me try to rewrite that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Alan Jolly. In the pacifistic TNG era, I was surprised at how unprepared Starfleet was. I think their unpreparedness shows why it is, in fact, a pacifistic era. I think that the lack of ships and people was exactly why it should be considered that. Now, lore runner will call it the golden age, but I think that is just basically Wolf 359 was really a telling era. You know, and here's an interesting thing. I wonder if the writers really knew the inferences that Wolf 359 would have. You know, I wonder if the writers knew that what they write in this series, the early seasons into the last seasons, how that would really reflect on Starfleet. Probably not, but I think it would have been cool if they did that to a degree. Lore Reloaded. What if the Federation weaponized the Omega particle and sent it into the Dominion in a cloaked bomb and destroy it around key worlds and random locations and cripple the Dominion? That would probably be a really great idea to stop the Dominion, though I think that there's no way Starfleet would do it. I think that that goes against the soul of Starfleet, and I would just light that up in a video like the 4th of July had that actually happened. Even Section 31 doing that, I think, may be too far, especially if you're looking at societies that may not have replicator technology. You know? Neko Matufu says, hell, just about everyone I've spoken to from mainland EU thinks the EU has serious issues. You mean an organization that is completely run by the Germans, where everything the Germans say you guys have to do is a bad idea? I can't think of a time in history when a lot of governments thought that was a bad idea. Star Trek overall shows that no matter how far we progress technologically, we are still a primitive species evolution-wise. It does show that, I think. I think especially when you look at Quark's saying, when you look at Eddington, or you look at early seasons of DS9. I do. I would agree with that. Making the Dominion anywhere near the Omega molecule is a bad idea. Starfleet underestimated them enough. You know, here's an interesting conversation. So we see all the time where Starfleet talks about how they just want to learn, they want to share ideas, and if you don't like them, they'll leave. However, the Omega Directive is in direct opposition to this. And I think that, again, the Prime Directive is all about a culture more as a pragmatic rule. Honestly, I think that the culture of it. And so my question is, what if you have the Dominion that discovered the Omega particle after the war? Or what if the Romulans discover the Omega particle at any point? Or you have a society that runs their power on Omega particles. This directive requires that Starfleet stop it at all costs, rescinding their cultural values. Again, I fully believe in TNG and even in DS9 to a degree, definitely Voyager, the Prime Directive is basically a cultural norm. I don't know. What do you guys think? Even going back like, oh, I'm not talking to me. Mislav doesn't mind the Germans. Well, that's good. Look at the Genesis device that was hushed up. It could have been used for terraforming planets faster, but Star Trek 3, we never hear about it again, even from the TNG terraforms. I don't know. So let me ask you guys this. A lot of people like to quote and go through Eddington's speech. Starfleet is worse than the Borg. At least the Borg tell you what they're going to do. I would almost agree with that, but I don't know that it's done on purpose necessarily. To be a part of Starfleet, to be a part of the Federation, you have to have a one world body. Ultimately, based on dialogue and everything, you have to have a one world body that agrees. You can't be in any kind of form of civil war, strife, or anything. You have to have equal rights. People have to be treated the same, generally. Now, you will have, I think, outliers that may have existed during the TOS era of Starfleet, but in TNG and even into DS9, I think that those are requirements. What are your thoughts? Because that does require a cultural change, a cultural shift. That does require a a right think of forms. And what are your opinions when it comes to that? And I think that the Federation and Starfleet does this because they think it's what's best, not for any malevolent issue. But you can do something that's malevolent without meaning to do it. So I'd be curious, what are your guys' thoughts when it comes to that? Lore Reloaded, I honestly think that if the Federation made the Omega particle and threatened the enemy, like you attack us, you get a visit from the Omega bomb. See, that's just outside of the ethos of Starfleet. I don't think Starfleet would ever do that. I don't think a post-Dominion War Starfleet would do that, and that's as militarized of a Starfleet as you can get, in my opinion. Can the Borg turn over species like Klingons and Romulans, Vulcans? Because I don't think I have seen any other species other than Earth turned into Borg. In Voyager, I don't think TNG. I do think maybe DS9, but for sure in Voyager we see at least Klingons. I think even Vulcans who are assimilated. So they can be assimilated and the worlds can be turned, I think. What intrigues me more is the Feds somehow managing to convince their entire population that a region of space was always impassable. That's a good idea. That's I don't know. Maybe that's a. It depends on the region, I guess. So in Voyager, we know the Omega particle exploded and created a region that can't be accessed via warp. And people say that it's due to a phenomena. A cover-up like that is something I could see Section 31 doing. And depending on how deep it is into Federation space, you wouldn't necessarily have a huge issue with that. I don't know. In TNG, you see assimilated Romulans, says Dave Gorman. Okay. You do? I don't remember that. I'd be interested to... Can you give me an episode on that, Dave? I'd be curious to see that. What if the government of the planet is an empire and the populace loves the crown, it keeps them strong, they fill every other criteria, would they be able to join? What if the government of the planet is an empire and the populace loves the crown? Well, that would technically still be a one world government. So, I don't know. In First Contact, we see assimilated Klingons and Cardassians. In First Contact, we see assimilated Klingons. I don't remember that at all. I'm going to have to rewatch First Contact. The Federation is a benevolent tyranny. I could agree with that. How much would the general populace know about space travel on Earth compared to people who go to Starfleet? I don't know. I would assume it would be similar to how many people know about flight and can fly airplanes versus those in the Air Force. I can't see it being anything different. Maybe in Enterprise, because we know that while there were public entities that had warp capabilities and such, it wasn't as, it wasn't as prevalent, maybe. And I do think, a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I do think there's enough evidence to show that Starfleet kept warp technology. The government's kept warp technology pretty close to the vest. That's not to say that public entities couldn't get a hold of it. I just don't think that it was as prevalent as people like to think. Beta Z, I don't know. I don't think we have enough information on Beta Z to know what it is. I liked the Borg best when the Enterprise D encountered the first cube at System J25. The idea of a queen undermines the concept of a group mind. I would agree with that. I think the queen was a horrific idea. It was a bad idea in First Contact, and when it was expanded in Voyager, I think it was really bad from a story writing aspect. If the Federation is perfectly willing to ally with a slaving and tyrannical empire like the Klingons, it just seems like their morals are flexible. You know, Hybrid Jack, it's an interesting idea, because the thing to consider too is it's not just the Klingons. First off, the Romulans did that as well, but it's not even that. It's not even Alpha Quadrant powers. The Federation was more than willing to ally or be friendly with the Dominion. When they first started, they just wanted to talk to him. They just wanted to be friendly. They just wanted to trade. They wanted to know about this empire. They wanted to interact. They knew full well that the Dominion utilized at least 2 slave races that they genetically enhanced and created for their own whims, that they treated solids like they were nothing, and they had hundreds of slave states that did the bidding of the Dominion. And they were absolutely and positively fine to have interactions with the Dominion, and only went to war after it was apparent that the Dominion would not stop putting military assets in the Alpha Quadrant. Death Scream, who the F dropped a dislike? Yeah, I usually get 1 dislike on all my videos within an hour or so. I actually have a pretty good idea of who it is, but I'm not going to go out of my way. By the way, if you're watching this, 76 concurrent viewers, if you want me to do more live streams, it's all about the interaction, having a good conversation. And YouTube will send the video out the more likes that I get. So just a consideration. Plus, you can share it if you want to. Death Scream says, evening, mate. What's going on? Would the founders get along with the Horta? Who are the Horta? I feel like I should know that. Star Trek Horta. Oh, yeah. Probably. But the Borg are like a hive mind, and hives have queens, so that makes sense to me anyway. I disagree. The way the Borg are described in TNG, the Borg of TNG and the Borg of Voyager are drastically different. They could not be further from each other. The Borg in TNG, the first time we see them, act as one mind, one voice. They have no interactions with anybody in between each other at all. And then you have the Queen, and you see the Queen drastically interacting with them. You see the Queen talking about how she experiences something that other drones don't. This is completely antithetical to what we see the first time we see the Borg, what we see at Wolf 359, and I would even, to a small degree, First Contact is even dissimilar from that, but not. It's Nico Matafu. It's not a dislike. It's just a couple of your Aussie viewers getting confused. That's horrible. That's horrible, sir. That's bad. Was Janeway part of Section 31? Think about it. We see her come from a foray into the Delta Quadrant with future technology from herself that never shows up again. Future Janeway may have been Section 31. I could definitely see that. That would also give credence to my idea that the future time agents that we see in Enterprise, in in Enterprise, in Voyager, are actually a Section 31 offshoot, or Section 31 has gotten its claws into it, if that was allowed to occur. Because if she was a part of Section 31 and then went back in time, Section 31 wouldn't do anything about it if they liked the results. The Queen is a sentient life form that manipulated everything, so she has her own robot empire. You know, the theory I like about the Queen was either one of two things. She was a response to Hugh when they sent Hugh back with individualism. Because remember, they didn't know how to deal with an individual different thoughts, and it almost destroyed the cube. So if that actually got into it, the construction of the Queen to stop this and preserve it in some form would be interesting. Or a species that was attempting to fight the Borg by sending in a creature that may have been more powerful or had an antigen, kind of like we see in one of the Voyager episodes. But something went wrong, and she was assimilated and just became the queen and not the destroyer of the Borg would be good theories that I like. They're personal fan theories that I think have some credibility. Some. Not a lot. What would you consider the greatest danger to the Federation to be? The greatest danger to the Federation is the Federation. In TNG DS9 Enterprise, to a degree, you see, and Discovery, you see admirals or entities taking over over Starfleet, and the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. The biggest fear the biggest fear or the biggest danger to the Federation is the fact that Starfleet admirals can work outside of the norm with no oversight and be able to almost completely overthrow the entire organization. That's the biggest danger. Would Voyager have fared better under a different captain or with a different ship? I think that they probably would have done better with Sisko or Picard simply because Janeway just wasn't ready for what occurred. I don't think that Sisko or Picard would have done great. I think that no one would have done great in that situation. Voyager was basically handmade to do a trip like that. No entity, no other vessel would have done well at all. The Galaxy class was far too much of a glass cannon and was too slow. The Defiant was made for war and short trips. And I think an Intrepid class was because of the writing specifically handmade for that. /.-121. I haven't seen you in a while, /.- Hope you're doing well. He gave me some money to brush my hair. Thank you. I appreciate that. $1.99, as you guys know, due to super chats and support from viewers like you, is the only way that I keep the lights on. So thank you so much. Hey, at Lori Loaded, what about a civil war between the United Federation and the reborn United States of Galactic America? And it all took place during the early 24th century. The war is about culture. The reborn United States of Galactic America. Springtrack, I'm sorry, I don't know that reference. Can you give me a little more? Maybe that's something I do know. Captain Ransom and Maxwell for the win. The Borg are not insects. They don't really need biological reproduction. A queen is not needed to produce more Borg. The Borg would have no need for a queen in any shape or form. Agreed. Interestingly, though, they may have the original thought of the Borg may have been insects. When you see in the what was the episode where Starfleet was taken over by the bugs? Rumor is that those were actually supposed to be those were supposed to be the Borg, ultimately. Sovereign or Excelsior, James? Excelsior, no. And Excelsior wouldn't last long. Sovereign, maybe. Sovereign is basically a is just an ultimate battleship. The only fear with the Sovereign is that it's so powerful that it would require so much dilithium. The Intrepid is specifically made to be able to not go, that long without dilithium. I think that'd be the issue. Darth Oculus, Starfleet hid knowledge of the Borg for 200 years. They either hid the knowledge of it or they were incompetent to an unreasonable degree. And again, thank you so much for the super chat, Darth Oculus. I haven't been getting notifications when you go live. Just stumbled on this /. There's a what is this? Is it notify.me? I think I'm gonna start using that. There's a new thing coming out that's called notify.me, where whenever I go live on any platform, you'll see it. I'll probably start using that. Do you think Q is a threat to the Federation and knows the wormhole gods? Do you think Q is a threat to the Federation? Well, since Q wanted to destroy all of humanity, I would call him a threat. Definitively, I can agree on that. By the way, 71 people watching, only 58 likes. If you want me to do this more, you want more people to see it, you want this to be worth what it can be, consider liking it, please. Yeah, I think that Q is a threat, and I do think he's aware of the Bajorans. Not the Bajorans, the Prophets, the wormhole aliens. When it comes to who's more powerful, I would almost go with Q. The wormhole aliens seem to be specific to the wormhole, and they can be killed, whereas I'm not convinced that we see... They can be killed by like quantum... They can be killed by quantum torpedoes. They can be killed by people within the universe, whereas Q can only be killed by Q weapons. So, yeah. I would agree, Jackson Heathen. I liked Janeway, but she had made some crappy command decisions. I would agree with that. I understand Starfleet neutrality, seeking good relations with other empires, even terrible ones like the Dominion, but we see them actively propping up and allying those regimes in the Klingons. I agree. Question: was this Borg line in character? We are the Borg, you will be annihilated, your biological and technological distinctiveness have become irrelevant. Resistance is, well, you say future, but resistance is, I forget what it was, but welcome. No, I don't think that's very Borg at all. I know that comes from the book. The book is overall pretty good, but it's definitely fan fiction. That is not how the Borg operate in the slightest. So there'd be absolutely no reason the Borg would not do or say that, in my opinion. The Galactic Americans wanted the American culture back from the Federation. They don't like the Prime Directive, and the other races, including humans, wanted their rights and freedoms back. Okay. I don't know anything about this entity, Springtrap. I'm sorry. Based on my knowledge, I'd say Starfleet would win because they'd probably have superior technology. If it's parity, if both organizations have about the same technology, then I would honestly call it a toss-up. Because you have humans fighting humans. Gigas Q muskets are better than a fleet of scimitars. I would agree with that. I was wondering what you ever decided to make a YouTube video of Star Trek versus Star Wars. I don't know. I'm not really big on crossovers like that. Maybe one day. What is your opinion on Evil Janeway and crew from Warship Voyager in episode Living Witness? What's my opinion? What do you mean evil, Plasma Core? In Living Witness, I think we just see the crew acting consistently. I think the crew in Living Witness are probably as to character as they generally are. So I don't know. I think maybe you're doing some fan fiction there, because I don't see any differences between the crew of Voyager and Living Witness and the crew generally, personally. The Federation sided with the Klingons to counter the Romulans. Yeah, but that's not very Starfleet, is it? It's not very human, is it, Castrix? So they sided with the Klingons because they were scared of the Romulans, so they were willing to prop up an organization that enslaved and attacked its own members and kept them down. That goes against the ethos of the Federation. Alan says, point being, Janeway punished others for the very things she herself did. I agree. I'm not a Janeway fan. Or let me rephrase that. Janeway has some great things that she does. She has some great writing. Janeway, when written appropriately, I think is on point. And I love Mulgrew. I think she is excellent. I really do. I think she hits it when Janeway is written well. But I don't like a lot of what Janeway does because I don't think she is very... she's not a good character. She does a lot of bad things. She has PTSD, in my opinion. Have you ever ever thought of doing a detailed video of Star Trek Tech versus Star Wars? Again, I'm not big on doing crossovers. I may at some point. I know Anti-Trekker did a series that I liked a lot, and I think you should go watch it. I don't know if he finished it or not, though. I think there's a lot of things in Star Trek that nullify other empires. So, Zwergen Paladin helping out, $2. Again, every little bit helps. Thank you so much. So just because I like your content, well, I like you, Zwergen. I think that transporters really almost ultimately defeat anything any ship in in Star Wars can do. I think that the ability to beam things on board is just a game changer. And we know that Starfleet ships can be more accurate than Star Wars. I think it would have been more interesting if they used an old character of an ambassador class for Voyager. It's a tank and tried and true, but not a glass cannon like the Galaxy class. I think it would have been more interesting. Nathan Norman, I just can't see an Excelsior class or an ambassador class surviving in the Delta Quadrant. Your thoughts on the animated series, stuff like its place in the canon or episodes that you really liked or hated? I don't really like the animated series all that much. It's not my cup of tea. I think it was poorly done. I know a lot of people like it. I don't. It is canon because the IP holders have decided that it's canon. I know that pisses a lot of people off because that means Star Trek Discovery is canon, but the animated series is considered, in totality, canon. Not me gaming. Have to head out. Talk to you later. I'll be ending soon. I have to leave too. It is what it is. I'd have to think on favorite episode because again, I just don't like the animated series. It's hard for me to watch, honestly. Springtrap, the United States of Galactic America was just a faction idea I just made up. So capitalist faction versus that of Starfleet, I think the capitalist faction loses because Starfleet doesn't require such things. /.-121, I want a haircut by the next stream or no more super chats for you, little missy. First off, I don't take threats well, good sir. Secondly, if you want to pay for my haircut, it's gonna be more than $5. This is America. We charge unreasonable prices. I don't think Q wanted to destroy humanity. He was just testing, pushing humanity forward. I don't know. Maybe. I think he was turned around. John Kelly, goodbye all. John Kelly, good to see you. Sorry, buddy, I didn't see you there. Hope I didn't miss any of your other things. All right, guys. I'm going to be ending it. There's going to be no upload today. Tomorrow, I will be doing the Urban Mech for Mech Warrior. I'm also going to be doing a... I'm also gonna be doing a video about the upload I did with the apology and stuff, just talking about that. And then there is going to be a retrospective video. Then we got the Dominion War, Romulan lore, and maybe StarCraft lore coming up soon. So, why is Enterprise vilified in fandom? Enterprise is largely vilified because it didn't respect in a lot of ways established canon. And it was a prequel when people didn't really want prequels. That's my opinion. The accuracy of Federation weapons is more fanfic. You see phasers miss all the time. Well, Trek being inconsistent. Trek being inconsistent is not necessarily a novel idea. And so, there's evidence where they never miss, and then I'm sure you can find evidence where they do. I don't know. One thing I liked about Voyager was the smaller ship compared to the Enterprise D. It was smaller. Stargate lore. Yeah, I should do Stargate lore. Someone offered to do some renders for me, which makes me want to do Starfleet lore or Stargate lore. I don't know. We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. I will see you on the next Lore Reloaded. And guess what? It's going to cut me off, even though when it comes back up, when it actually uploads, it'll have what I said uploaded. But when it comes to live streams, it specifically cuts me off. And there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. I don't know why it cuts me off. It's just really poorly put together.